to getting people to see the other side. I don't see it as an easy task, I guess.
It's not an easy task. And what's more important than seeing the other side, you aren't going to see the other side until you see yourself. And so
Mm,
the first order of business is helping the person get under the story, under the drama, into the feelings and start feeling some of that. And mindfulness modalities, it's presence. It's not always easy and it's not for everyone, but it is our path as human beings,
right.
right? It is what we are called here to do. And a lot of people are going to have a lot of walls, but a lot of people under all of that, they want release, they want freedom, they want to not be swimming and swirling in the dispute. They want to get back to like their whole and complete selves.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is simply yet profound, and it's to help you live your best audacious life ever. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to our listeners for carving time out of your day to join us as we embark on this journey together. Remember that every episode is a stepping stone towards self-discovery, empowerment, and growth. Now, as we dive into today's theme, we're focusing on conflict. Now, often it's perceived as a hurdle. Conflict can be viewed as a fertile ground for growth. Think of a seed that's buried in soil. It must push through the darkness to reach the sunlight. Additionally, just as a gardener must be attuned to the needs of their plant, emotional awareness is crucial in managing conflict effectively. Leaders must, like gardeners, have the incredible opportunity to foster a culture of collaboration by modeling healthy conflict resolution behaviors. Through self-awareness and mindfulness, we can navigate tension with grace and intention, and by dropping the blame game, we can clear the path for more productive resolutions. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Ursula Taylor to the podcast. Ursula is a highly respected consultant based in Chicago, specializing in conflict resolution and organizational dynamics. With over 17 years of experience in commercial litigation, she has a unique perspective on conflict as an opportunity for growth. Her mission is to help leaders and teams navigate tension and foster cohesive environments where collaboration thrives. Now, Ursula's insights are incredibly relevant to our discussion today as we explore conflict, not just as a challenge, but as an opportunity for transformation. So, without any further ado, let's dive into our chat with Ursula. Enjoy. Hey, Ursula, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you for having me, Audley.
Yeah, no, it's great to, like I said, we were just talking a moment ago. It's great to be able to engage in conversations, dialogue that, potentially can, make a difference in the lives of others. And so, the fact that, we get to do this I consider it a blessing. And I want to thank you for again, helping me fulfill my own personal mission of being here and sharing. One of the things that we talk about on the podcast often is, again, how to live that best audacious life. And I think a real fundamental piece is understanding that we're all on our own individual pathways, which are full of our own choices, our own obstacles, as well as our own rewards too. And so, the path and the steps that we take are going to be different for everyone. I think though the piece, and this is and your expertise in sort of conflict resolution fits into this nicely, is really how we manage and navigate those issues that come up from time to time that potentially could derail us or derail a situation or derail a relationship, let's say. And so having these skills, having good solid conflict resolution skills are important and can be beneficial for us and really help us lead that best audacious life that we talk about. So maybe as a starting point, Ursula, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience and sort of fill everyone in a little bit what the work that you do and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, Ursula Taylor. I'm based in Chicago, Illinois. I am a consultant who helps leaders, teams, organizations navigate tension, navigate conflict, whether that is a litigation, approaching a litigation, not yet there, or just team building and leadership training around efficient ways to navigate tension and create more cohesive teams. And I think what's unique about me is that I view conflict as opportunity. It's a bit of a different kind of mentality, but I believe that when we are in a tension or a conflict, it's because there is something for us. And I suspend blame or fault. I ask the people I work with to consider a ground rule that involves suspending blame or fault and really just looking at it in terms of fear and feelings.
Mhm.
Because underlying every conflict is human emotion,
Yeah.
generally some fear-based human emotion. And the background from which I come to this is actually commercial litigation. I practiced litigation in Chicago for 17 years. And I didn't come into litigation or this consultancy planning to talk to people about fear and feelings, but I wanted to help my clients and I wanted to get to solutions and get them back to their business functions and do it efficiently.
Hmm.
And as I dug deeper and deeper, I came to understand that human relationships and the human emotion that comes up in human relationships is what drives every dispute, including
Right.
including litigation.
Right, right, right. And it's almost like if you truly want to do, the work that you do justice, it's almost impossible not to talk about fear and feelings because they're so rooted in what conflict is all about.
Exactly, exactly. And there's no space for it in traditional dispute resolution, litigation process, discovery process, and under the federal rules of civil procedure, you do initial disclosures and it's extensive in terms of the witnesses and, the nature of the dispute and the issues and there's no disclosure about what you feel and what relationships and what humans and where this
Right.
comes from. It's not part of it. It's not part of
Right.
it.
Right. And it's really interesting because if you're familiar with the coaching space, you would know that emotions are oftentimes are information. There's something there. So when someone has emotion about something, there's something, there's more to it underlying that. And so, again, in sort of what you described in typical litigation or conflict, again, we're not asking about feelings or emotions. And the other thing too is that we sometimes lose sight of the fact that if we can pinpoint where the emotions are coming from, that can help us determine if the conflict is really real. At least the issues, I mean, the conflict itself is real, but the issues around it, they really truly are at the heart of the matter, or is there something else going on, I would say.
Yes, exactly. I agree. And we jump to a lot of assumptions and conclusions
Yeah,
from our history and from our fear and from our emotion, and that will drive a dispute. People can be embroiled in terribly expensive, draining, awful disputes without ever having really physically met the other person. They just built
right.
this story, they built assumptions, and I see litigations run on this. It's
Gotcha.
crazy.
Off the top, you mentioned about it being an opportunity for growth. I'd love to sort of expand on it a bit more, if you wouldn't mind, and explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, conflict is opportunity, and I think thinking about it and reframing it into that lens is right and helpful. A lot of us are afraid of conflict. It feels like a sideshow that distracts us or takes us off course, and it is, but it's also this beautiful signal and pathway.
Hmm.
When we have a tension point or a conflict with another person, that's an opportunity, and there's a benefit to that because we can find our thread. As I was mentioning earlier, if you're in a dispute or a tension point or something has you irritated or amped up or angry or emotional or whatever it is, there is something in it for you. And I'm not talking about blame or fall or accountability in that way. What I'm talking about is there's something touched, right?
Hmm.
And we can't resolve conflict by operating from that emotional charge. We actually perpetuate and amplify conflict. So
Sure.
it's really important to become self-aware of what's touched for us and what our threat is. And we lose sight of this because we live in a collective society and system built around blame and fault. Our entire legal system is built around blame and fault. Who's right and who's wrong, and adversarial processes. And that is the illusion that keeps us stuck. It's
Mm,
really more about fear and feelings and awareness of ourselves and awareness of other people and adding a layer of shame on top of it
sure.
you were the one who was wrong, feel ashamed or guilt, it keeps us more stuck because we don't get to the underlying fear-based feeling that had us in the conflict to begin with. So we just stay distracted.
I'd love to hear how you get your clients to see that. Like, I mean, okay, again, I'm in a conflict situation. I don't want you to tell me what my feelings and my emotions. I'm pissed off at what this person has done to me, and I
Hmm.
want, I'm Ursula. Let's go get them. Right? That's
Hmm.
my mentality, right? To slow me down, to bring my
Hmm.
emotions down, to get me to see, wait, there's an underlying issue. It's got to be tough.
Yeah, it can be tough. It's not for everyone. But when you come from where I come from, commercial litigation, the business case is easy. I
Okay.
mean, litigation attorneys are billing by the hour. I've
Yeah.
never done a litigation budget through trial for less than like 350,000, probably $500,000. Not a real budget, not a real budget. And then there's usually like a page of assumptions that go with that budget that are all out of my control in terms of the judge, the other side,
Right.
like so the business case is easy when you're talking to businesses and people ask me, who are your clients? It's really anyone who prioritizes their business function, the clients this they serve, the service they provide, the thing that they make. Anyone who prioritizes that above winning, being right, making someone wrong. Like if you want to do what you do and you understand what I understand in terms of traditional dispute resolution, investing in a path to preserve resolution-oriented strategies, to sort of get to the root of things, to unpack things in a more holistic way. And then I still also bring in sort of the practical, prudent
Sure.
strategies in terms of negotiation strategy. And it's also helpful to speak to someone who understands what litigation is and what it isn't as sort of the backdrop,
Mhm.
last ditch choice
Right.
choice.
Right. So I get that from the perspective of a litigation in sort of the courtroom setting, in the personal or even I mean even business to business, but even personal, that's still I guess I guess I'm just thinking of how angry like when you're dealing with emotions, like how charged these conflicts can be because of the emotions,
Mhm.
and to getting people to see the other side. I don't see it as an easy task, I guess.
It's not an easy task. And what's more important than seeing the other side, you aren't going to see the other side until you see yourself. And so
Mm,
the first order of business is helping the person get under the story, under the drama, into the feelings and start feeling some of that. And mindfulness modalities, it's presence. It's not always easy and it's not for everyone, but it is our path as human beings,
right.
right? It is what we are called here to do. And a lot of people are going to have a lot of walls, but a lot of people under all of that, they want release. They want freedom. They want to not be swimming and swirling in the dispute. They want to get back to like their whole and complete selves.
Right.
Um, no matter how large or small the dispute is, it's a nuisance, it's a drain
Yep.
financially and otherwise. And so if people are calling me, if they're calling a litigation attorney, they want out. And that was the big observation that I took from my work as a commercial litigator. Most of the time when you're dealing with entities that are headed towards litigation or in litigation,
Mhm.
they don't want to win or be right. They want out and they don't know how.
Right.
Yeah.
It gets to a point where it's and some of these I'd imagine have been going on a while before you get involved, even right. Like it's been going on for a
Hmm.
bit, and now it's like okay, so I can get that I want out because it's just like this. How do we end this, right? But
Hmm.
sometimes you get so far deep, it's kind of like too late to turn back. So you got to keep pushing ahead, and that's where it gets more challenging because you got both sides just butting heads now to recover losses because now you're getting into that loss period, right? And now you want to recover some of those losses, and that's where it gets challenging.
It can get challenging. Yeah. And it takes a balance of sort of an intuitive, emotional discernment and a presence and ability to sit with people and help them feel safe going into that. And also just a practical legal mindset in terms of this is where you're at. This is your burn rate for your litigation or what it could be. This is what it'll take.
Hmm.
let's think about chances of success and wrap our head around that. So the two things together are helpful to a lot of businesses and leaders.
Right, 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 right. I'd love to hear from your experience some sort of misconceptions that exist around conflict resolution or the process of resolving conflict.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of them we've touched on. A misconception that if you're right, then some judge will fix this. No, what you're doing when you involve a judge or any trier of fact is you're involving another human, another set of
Mm,
human emotions. And
right,
you're essentially what a trial lawyer is doing is recruiting that person to participate in the drama or the emotion, but to your benefit. Um, Another misconception is really what we talked about around blame and fault, that the way to end a dispute is to show that you're right and they're wrong. That actually, that quest, that seeking, that striving for blame and fault will keep your conflict alive. And
mm,
what will sustainably and efficiently resolve conflict is when you can lead one or more participants to sort of elevate above it and to answering the question of what do I need? What do I
right,
need? And getting an answer that relates to what you do as a human, what you do as a business, what you do as a team or an organization, the practical, prudent, not emotionally charged, what do I need?
right,
And
right,
aligning your strategies to that. And that can only be done when you've dealt to a certain extent and developed a certain amount of awareness, either as an individual or as a group, about the emotional charge that's blocking you.
right, right, right. I think once you're very clear on that and know what the issues that at least allows you the opportunity to address it. Again,
Hmm.
knowing what's charging, right? What emotions or what's the hot button for me? And again, like I said earlier, sometimes it's not about the actual conflict itself. There's something underlying, and so it's really the digging underneath that, right? We're talking about here.
Yeah, yeah, it's an inside out strategy and pathway, not an
Okay,
outside in. So
okay,
I guess the biggest misconception about conflict resolution is that we resolve our conflict and we satisfy this feeling by going out into the world and controlling and compelling through judges or what have you, or through negotiation. There's a lot of negotiation strategy about how to compel and coerce the other person, and some of that is right, but it doesn't work until you've done the inside part. Because when
mm-hmm.
we're emotionally charged, when we're running on emotion,
Mm-hmm.
even if we're sort of like dipping in and out of it, like we can get clear, we can get neutral, we can present in a clear, neutral way. If it's under there, it's going to affect how how you deal with the other side and the decisions you make, not to
Mm,
your benefit. What you want to do to get clarity, to get sort of a grounded, neutral sense of clarity about what, answering questions about what do I need and being able to really assess how do you get there with me or with your lawyers, you got to deal with that emotional charge. You have
right.
to deal with it. And all that really is that we're all energy. We're all energy, and our emotions are energy, and our thoughts are energy.
Yep.
And so within litigation or otherwise, you can have a conversation that looks and feels really professional, and maybe everybody's wearing a suit, and maybe there's a highly paid mediator sitting there, and maybe there's really important people in the room. But and maybe you're using big words. It's
Right.
still
Right.
human emotion. It is
Yep.
still a human emotion.
Yep, yep, yeah. Let's try not to forget that because I think it'll help
Right,
us
right,
get it.
right.
You also work with leaders and teams too, as part of your work, and I'd sort of love to get your thoughts because the way I see it, leaders can play a huge role in sort of fostering an environment that is conducive to healthy conflict, if that makes
Hmm.
sense, right? And so
Hmm.
there's a piece of that like so when I think of something like collaboration as an example, right? Collaboration is a great answer to conflict because if you're collaborating and working together, you're looking for a positive outcome for everyone, and not that
Hmm.
the whole thing about it's not about winning anymore. It's how do we collaborate together as a team. So I'm just wondering how leaders can sort of foster that sort of environment where the collaboration and maybe even innovation allows it to breathe, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, collaboration is key. I love that. I agree with that. And the way leaders do this is by creating the environment, as you mentioned, for that kind of collaboration. that kind of communication.
Hmm.
It's a sense of safety, and unafraid to make mistakes. Underlying that is the idea that mistakes are opportunities,
Yes.
opportunities to learn. So I'll be working with a team and someone will just need to vent or share about a situation. A lower level employee, this is an example, a lower level employee really messed up. She really messed up. She did
Okay.
this, it did that, it
Hmm.
created this whole thing. It was so embarrassing. It was, and then I just like level set. What did you learn? What did you learn? What did the middle management learn? What did the junior person learn? There is an opportunity in every mistake. If you're like,
Right.
whatever happened is over. You can't change it. It's done. How do you want to deal with it now? Do you want to
Right.
take this opportunity to learn or just keep repeating, the fear cycle? So it's similar to how I deal with conflict. It's where are we holding fear? Where are we holding shame or guilt? The derivations of fear, pride or scarcity. And where are we holding that? And there's strategies for like dealing with that and releasing some of that. And then you once the leaders can sort of contend with a little bit of themselves in that way
Hmm.
through some
Hmm.
self-awareness, they're able to operate in a way that will create that feeling of psychological safety, the stuff that breeds innovation, that, a willingness to speak up. You can feel it in a room with a team that's like a little bit stifled in fear and doesn't have that collaborative culture. No one's talking, no one's chatting, no one's like, well, what about
Mm.
this? Well, what about that? It's not a free flow. You can feel it in the room.
Right, right. When I think about leaders in conflict, I think probably the number one thing that comes to my mind when I think about how they can create or foster that environment where healthy conflict is a good thing, is how they handle conflict themselves. Right, like
Exactly.
people are going to follow the example of what they see happening, right? And so, if leaders, managers, CEOs, bosses, whatever you want to call them, aren't managing conflict in a healthy environment, or a healthy way, in a healthy manner, then that's going to it's going to sort of trickle effect down to how the rest of the organization operates. I see it.
It's absolutely true. And the reverse is true too. When a leader does exemplify the skill sets and the self-awareness and sort of
Hmm.
the willingness to be accountable for their own fear and feelings, they can actually take whatever the tension point or the conflict or let's say there's a meeting where an example would be a leader gets a little fired up and a little defensive and sort of like unloads, maybe like points a finger at someone and behaves in a way that just kind of breeds fear and insecurity and
Right.
a lot like some bad vibes, right?
Hmm.
Let's say that happens. There is an opportunity in that if that leader is willing to take a beat, get conscious, get self-aware, and be like, I did that because I was feeling I was feeling proud. I was feeling really like just a lot of just an oversurge of pride and then sort of like a threat. I felt threatened or unworthy or like whatever it is. If that leader can then own it and,
Mm.
and take some accountability, not just for what they did, like I shouldn't have said that,
Right.
getting a little deeper and exemplifying and showing like I felt X and I was operating from that
Hmm.
and then show that to the people in the room. Same, this applies to families too. This applies to parents
Sure.
and children
Yeah.
too.
Totally.
When you can do that, that's gold. Because not
Mm.
only have you unraveled a little thread for yourself, but you've shown your team how to do that and that it's safe to do that. And
Hmm.
that's the stuff that's really going to differentiate the highly effective teams and leaders in this next era of our humanity, we'll
Right.
say.
Right.
We have AI to tell us to tell us the facts and the figures. It's who's going to leverage our humanness.
Yes, yes, yeah,
So
and I think as long as we bear in mind that the humanist exists on the other side of the table, right? And that person has their own feelings and their beliefs and their emotions, and I think if we like the word grace comes to mind, right? And as long as we continue to exhibit that grace and recognize the humanity in others, I think that puts us on the path of where we need to be in terms of having healthier conflict, right? But
Mhm.
until that's
Mhm.
done and we in our emotions and we're upset, it's
Mhm.
not going to be hard. It's going to be really hard, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard and get harder and harder. And so the business case is there. The business case is easy,
Yeah.
yeah. And as we talk about this, I think there's a lot of naysayers who, they're like, I don't want to be this mushy like feelings and emotions and all of that. Like, I don't want that. I'm not into that. We're not doing that. And to those people, I say, great, then you should consider what I'm sharing as well, because what I'm talking about is developing the habits and the strategies to deal with emotion in like quick and easy ways that are just kind
Mm,
of in a like a beat and a flow, and it's not mired in emotion. And like when you ignore emotion, when you
yeah.
repress or deny it, that's when it's big and
Yes.
gnarly. When
Yes.
you learn how to just kind of use it as a signal, a pathway, an opportunity, you can do
Gotcha.
something different.
Gotcha. No, makes sense. It makes sense. Let's sort of talk about some of the tools and things that we can use to help us manage emotion or manage conflict in a healthy manner. Like I just think,
Mhm.
of an individual that's, approaching sort of a conflict situation. I'd imagine there's some, key steps or things that they should be doing, or it's good to
Mhm.
do to be able to turn that from, conflict into a growth opportunity, like you said.
Yeah, I mean the biggest step is the first one, which is stop. Notice yourself. You're feeling charged. You're starting to feel upset. You feel a clench in your jaw, a hunch in your shoulders, a
Mm,
pit in your stomach, a fire in your chest. Begin to notice that. And sometimes we have to kind of slow down to find that and see that and feel that.
mhm.
We're multitasking, we're sending an email and receiving an email and pouring a coffee and talking on the phone all at the same time. It's when we're moving with that speed, we can miss it,
Yeah.
but sometimes we have to slow down. But when we feel it, literally stop. Like just take a beat, take a breath and notice. Just don't act from that emotion.
Mm,
We think that the way to deal with that emotion is to fire off an email and let them know. Or, like take an action to try to like affect the environment. It's inside out, not outside in.
mm,
First, get aware, get conscious. And it's not about there's two paths that people kind of take that look correct but are not. And one is sort of repressing and denying. I'm not going to get emotional. Keep this professional. Get the
right.
emotion. Like you can't do that. If it comes up, if it's there until
Mm,
you release it. How do you release it? You change it. How do you change it? You become aware of it. You sit in it. And the other
right.
the other path that people I think fall victim to is it comes up and they're just like, I'm afraid of that. So no. Like, it's like this, that's my fear, so we're not doing it. Like they note the fear for the purpose of having a wall and having just a, yep, I'm afraid of that, we're not doing it. Instead of noting your fear for the purpose of sitting in the fear, releasing the fear, and choosing from something different, letting it
Right.
like evaporate.
Hmm.
So, so it's tricky because we can be seemingly doing something that's contending with our fear, and really we're
Yep.
just energizing and supporting it.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
back to your question, slowing down and stopping and taking a beat and developing that self-awareness and having an inside out as opposed to an outside in is
Yeah.
is most of it,
Right.
right? And
Right.
then sitting in the feeling. And the second piece would be drop the story, drop the drama, drop
Right.
the he said, she said.
But it's a great story. I mean, it's a
I
fantastic story. I can't let it
mean,
go.
it's such good gossip. Like if you knew what she said and what he said and what happened, like you
Right.
can lose yourself in it for
That's
sure.
right.
But you are deepening the groove. When you ruminate in it, you are just
Yes. Yeah.
reinforcing it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're just a highly intellectualized species, and at this point in our development and our evolution, we feel that our intellectualism, like our ability to solve with like all these like big words and strategies and highly developed ideas is the path. And that's what can keep us really stuck. I mean, that's
Right.
my background on a personal level. And that's really what can keep us stuck. And what we want to do is get out of the intellectualization, out of the analysis, and just breathe.
Mm,
Whatever mindfulness techniques help you get out of your thoughts and into the present moment, into your body, whether
yes.
that's meditation or exercise or walks in nature. That's
Mm,
the goal.
mhm. And it's interesting, you use the word evaporate in reference to just sort of what actually happens, and it's so funny. I think that's a perfect word because you're this thing that's got you all worked up and you're excited about, and you sort of go through that process. And I also should point out too, and maybe get your comment, so when you first come to that conflict and we have to stop and sort of collect our thoughts, that process can take as ever long as it. There's no set time where it has to be done by. That can take as long, ever long as we want it to take.
Hmm.
Um, but then
That's
as
right.
you sort right as you continue along, it does seemingly just disappear, like it was almost never there to begin with. Right.
Yes, like it was almost never there to begin with, and
Right.
you almost forget that that was overtaking you. And the other thing to keep in mind, I think, is knowing that your emotions, not identifying with your emotions, they are passing through. You are you, and they are just driving by,
Mm,
passing
mm,
through. So
mm.
let it, because that's the only way it's gonna like go through. So allow it. And then there's a whole host of external strategies, which is the stuff everybody wants to talk about. Like, how do
Sure.
I get the other person to see my perspective? And there are strategies for that. We can go into those if
Could
we
we?
have
Yeah. Could we
time.
actually? I was gonna. That's kind of what I'd
Yeah,
like to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the most important thing is that those don't work if you're still emotionally charged. Because even
Mm,
if you're not expressing a defensiveness or a righteousness, you're keeping it seemingly repressed. We're intuitive beings and it's felt. So these strategies don't work if you are not grounded and clear and in a space of neutrality or courage or a more peaceful kind of space and
hmm.
mentality. But the strategies really revolve around the same things we were talking about, but you're creating the space for the other person to feel into them. So evoking feelings of sameness
Yeah.
in your counterpart, like let's say in a negotiation, invoking a feeling of sameness, mirroring their body language, mirroring
Hmm.
how they're sitting or folding their arms or legs, mirroring the cadence of their voice, mirroring them creates a psychological feeling of sameness that will start to create the foundations of some trust building,
Right.
active listening. So that's not just
Yeah.
hearing them, but being fully present. And a misconception we have here is that if I listen, if I give the floor to my counterpart, I'm telling them they're right. That's why the ground rule about blame and fault is so important.
Mm,
Because
mm.
when you're listening to them, you're giving them the space to find their own thread,
Right.
their
Right. Right.
own thing, right? And you have to be neutral. If you can't be neutral, you're not gonna be effective in this. But if you can mirror to create a feeling of sameness,
Hmm.
begin to put the focus on them, active listening, less
Mm.
talking. You can bring in probing questions that help put the focus on them. How did we get here? How do you see this? What is it you want?
Yeah.
Where's this going? Those kinds of questions, as
Hmm.
they begin to speak, they begin to hear themselves. Trust starts to be created, and you can start, and it might take several meetings,
Sure.
it might take a lot
Hmm.
of sessions like this,
Hmm. Hmm.
but the more you put the focus on the other person, the walls come down, dialogue gets starts to
Mm.
get created, trust, and then you've created a space where you can actually be heard because
Right.
they've been able to
Yes. Yeah.
to feel into what's coming up for them.
The word empathy screams at me as you're talking about hearing and giving people an opportunity to say what's on their mind, and so the importance of empathy also sort of stands. I know it's woven throughout all the process, I would imagine, but I certainly think it's
Mhm.
a key thing to at least bear in mind for us that we need to be empathetic in our response and in our listening.
Empathy. Yes, empathy. And some years ago, before I really got into this, I wrote an article called tactical empathy.
Okay.
And it was like the beginning of kind of understanding this. It was built from the some ideas from a former FBI negotiator. His name is Chris Voss, and he wrote a book called Never Split the Difference,
Hmm.
where he's really speaking about the strategies for sameness and mirroring and psychological safety and focus on the other person as strategies he used in hostage negotiations effectively.
Right.
And what's missing though is getting regulated within yourself and aware within yourself so that you're actually effective in those spaces. But empathy is huge, but it's not a tactical empathy.
Right.
It's not like let me repress and control my emotion so I
Mm.
can manipulate you. It's let's get aware and conscious so that my emotion isn't a factor in this and we
Right.
can create space for you to deal with yours. That's
Gotcha.
effective negotiation strategy. That
Hmm.
is effective conflict resolution.
Hmm. Hmm. And again, it's getting to the point of having it's allowing the other person to feel that they're being heard, they're being respected, they're being understood, and that helps smooth the way for them to be able to offer the same for the other side, right? So it's a really
Exactly.
effective tool, really effective tool.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
What advice would you give to someone who maybe there's people who fear conflict, who avoid it, as you mentioned earlier, but they also recognize that it is an incredible opportunity for growth and it's important to growth. What advice would you give to that individual?
Yeah, I mean, fearing conflict is it's a threat of fear, right? It is a layer that keeps us blocked. And until we contend with that fear, and I would offer the strategies that I offer with any fear or fear-based emotion once it's identified. So fear of conflict, right?
Hmm.
Let's go into it. Let's sit in that. What is that? Where do you feel that in your body? Let's turn the volume way up on that fear and
Mm.
start to feel into that and understand that and explore that and really allow it. And then what's the worst that can happen? What could happen? What
Right.
really could happen? And let the person who's holding that fear go there and really experience that. And the miracle that happens is if you can really just go into not so much the story, but the energy of it, the feeling
Hmm.
of it,
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
how you can begin to release it. And then
Right.
you can kind of unpack it. That could happen. Maybe that will happen. Maybe they will react in that way,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And
Right.
it's really leading people back to themselves by
Yes. Yeah.
dealing with and contending with this fear. And that's the
Mm.
powerful precursor step
Mm.
that needs to be undertaken before any conflict resolution negotiation strategy, external strategies are effective.
Yeah. Makes total sense. Makes total sense. Um, how has conflict resolution over the years evolved or changed from your perspective? Well, you've been doing it for a little while, and I'm sure there have been changes. I'm thinking like, are there technologies that can have been introduced to help with managing conflict or resolving it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're not there yet in terms of systemic change,
Okay.
but we're doing it on an individual level. I
Mm.
think mental health modalities, mindfulness modalities, wellness strategies
Yeah.
on an individual level are things that people are undertaking. And the more we undertake that in an individual way, the more we can start to understand how this integrates in, relationships,
Yep.
organizations, teams, leadership strategy, et cetera. So
Hmm.
there is an evolution that's happening. I think it's
Right.
going to continue and
Hmm.
I think it's going to accelerate. Because, like I've been saying throughout this conversation, the business case is there. The business case is easy.
Yes.
What do you
Yes.
want to do? You want to be right? You want to fight and be right? Like, or do you want to change the world through and create abundance for yourself and
Got
your
you.
teams through whatever it is that you're called to do?
I like that. What do you want to do? That's a great question as a starting point,
Hmm.
right? What do you want to
Hmm.
do?
Exactly.
This is the Audacious Living podcast. I think it's only fitting if I ask you how you see the field of conflict resolution contributing to an audacious life.
Yeah, I think the field of conflict resolution can contribute to an audacious life because it's conflict is a path, it's an opportunity for growth, for expansion, for clarity, for vision, for creativity, for innovation.
Hmm.
If you heed it, if you heed the signal, if you
Right.
heed the pathway and go into yourself. And that's empowering. That's empowering to know that conflict can be resolved from within me without the counterpart.
Right.
So an audacious life is I think supported by understanding that conflict is opportunity.
Love it. I think that's going to be, when I oftentimes, when I finish these conversation and dialogue, I kind of reflect on myself, and I already know that, that conflict is opportunity will be something that's going to be ringing in my head over and over again because I wholeheartedly agree with you. So we got listeners here who obviously they're listening, they're interested in conflict and want to start transforming, conflicts into the opportunities like we talked about. Is there one bold thing or one thing that they can do to start that process today?
Yeah, I think it's slow down, stop, become aware. Slow
Hmm.
down, stopping, become aware before you engage with the other side. Slow down,
Beautiful.
stop, and become aware before you make a decision, take an action. Get clear on yourself. It's an inside out and not an outside in.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. I gotta tell you, Ursula, this has just been a very, very insightful conversation. I've very much appreciated the knowledge and perspectives that you've shared. For listeners that wanted to connect with you directly or learn more about your work, where could we send them?
Sure. Yeah, I've got a website. You can learn more about me there and reach out to me through that website. It's www.conflictreimagined.com. My email is my name at conflictreimagined.com, Ursula at conflictreimagined.com. So yeah, reach out, check out some of my writings and some of my thoughts and my work. And yeah, I'd love to connect with any of your listeners on any actual or potential disputes or tension points or team building.
For sure. Well, and we'll also make sure that the contact details are in the show notes below. Again, Ursa, this has been fantastic. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to connect and share in the manner in which we have. Congratulations on the journey and there's I was gonna say new discoveries, but I think it's always evolving, and so there's that the opportunity to learn something new will always be there. And as we talked about, conflict is an opportunity for growth, and so I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And thank you today for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Back we are here on the podcast. Much thanks and appreciation goes out to Ursula for being here for a very enlightening chat. One of the main points that stood out to me was the idea that conflict, when approached with emotional awareness and a willingness to learn, can lead to significant personal and professional growth. Ursula's perspective on viewing conflict as an opportunity rather than a setback truly resonates, especially in today's fast-paced world where collaboration is absolutely essential. And I got to tell you, what I personally loved about the interview was Ursula's emphasis on self-awareness as a tool for navigating tension. It's a reminder that before we can address external conflicts, we must first turn inward and understand our emotions and responses. Her approach is not only refreshing, but also practical, encouraging us to embrace conflict as a part of the journey rather than something that we've got to fear. As we wrap up today's episode, I encourage you to connect with Ursula directly. You can find her contact details in the show notes below, along with offers that she has that she may be providing. So certainly encourage you to check out her website and learn more about Ursula and her work. As we conclude, let's kind of circle back to that analogy of conflict as a seed pushing through the soil, because just as that seed requires attention, care, and openness to growth, so do our conflicts, because they require emotional awareness, self-reflection, and a willingness to collaborate. Remember, it's not about who is right or wrong. It's about the growth we can achieve together. Thank you for tuning in to the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, and share to help us continue to grow this community. Let's keep embracing our audacious lives together. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.